Welcome back to Solidarity on the Bench, a podcast for 20-somethings by a 20-something. I'm your host, Katie Yu, and on this podcast, we talk about everything and anything with a focus on mental health and personal well-being. New episodes every Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST. I'm joined with wellbycami. I've been following Cami for a really long time. I love doing like a little personal intro of how I know these people. Cami and I have been mutuals on Instagram for quite a while. I don't know when I found you, but I was always super inspired by your work. And then when I was publishing my thesis back in like last year, I used one of Cami's pictures as an example of that girl, which is so funny. And then I'm pretty sure I interviewed you for another one of my theses. So Cami and I have been kind of circling each other's social media orbits for a while. And I'm very excited to have Cami on the podcast.
Wow, thank you so much. I remember when you first reached out and you let me know that, and I was like, oh my God, are you serious? I was definitely super, super flattered, but knowing your content, I know it was, in the right setting that it was being used and kind of was definitely something of a compliment. So really, really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, we've met in person before in New York. I literally feel like you're such a joy. So I'm very honored to be here on the podcast and to talk today.
I'm so excited to have you on. So, for the people who don't know you, can you give me a brief overview of who you are and what you do in the online space?
Yeah, so um, where to even start? So, my name is Cami. My full name is Camelia, but I'm often called Cami. Born and raised in LA, I currently live in New York. Went to school in Philly. I actually have a background in business, operation system processes. I graduated from Morton. And I say all that to say is that I originally got into the social media space because I played soccer at school, and my senior year, when that was over, I was trying to figure out what fitness meant to me. And so I started my Instagram, which was, camellia.fitsta at first. So it was just supposed to be like a little thing that no one saw. And now it's really grown into something where it's really kind of an embodiment of my love for wellness. And I talk about financial wellness, I talk about mental wellness, physical, anything really in the realm of optimization, but from a holistic point of view. I love learning, and so I often talk about things that I've learned on different podcasts. Now that we're going to talk about Andrew Huberman, who I'm obsessed with, I'm just always trying to find different avenues to tap into things that make me feel comfortable and confident in my skin. I want everyone else to have those resources as well, and so that's really kind of what I share on my channel.
So, before we kind of dive into Andrew Huberman, financial wellness, all of that, I was kind of saying like I'm excited to pick your brain about. Um, I ask all of my podcast guests this question, and it's just to prove like we all do it. There's a lot of solidarity on the bench. So, when was the last time you asked for help?
Oh my goodness. Um, I ask for help so often. I think the one that sticks out to me probably was like 2 weeks ago. I just needed someone to be like a mental foundation for me in a way, like someone to kind of give me some perspective. So I asked my boyfriend really um, to kind of like, I needed a moment where I was like, am I doing okay? Like, are you proud of me? Am I heading in the right direction? I often feel lost and then found and then lost and then found. I think a lot of us do. So I really just needed him to like hold my hand for a second and just kind of let me know, like, am I doing a good job, or do you think that, I'm heading in the right direction? Um, he was wonderful. I definitely had a little bit of a mental breakdown, and he was wonderful throughout the whole thing. So that's the one that sticks out to me the most. But, at work and things like that, I definitely ask for help all the time.
Honestly, what an inspiring way to ask someone for help in like the please listen to me, validate me, give me advice and your opinion. And I definitely want to do that now as well. So thank you for inspiring me as like a different way that I can ask for help.
Totally. I often, I feel like the best people in my life are energizers, and I think of them as like thought partners, someone that you can like bounce
Hmm.
ideas off of, just brainstorm with, get, dreams out there and energy out there. And sometimes that looks like just being also kind of just like a wellness partner, like a human
Hmm.
to human, flagship. So
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that vibe, do you have any like ins and outs for 2024? I'm so curious for yours specifically because I know yours are so like, podcast and like scientific backed. So I want to know.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the first one is not necessarily as backed by podcasts, but it's do less to do more. I often put so much pressure on myself to cover so much ground, and I've realized that if I can release some of that guilt or pressure or expectation I have on myself to just tackle a few things, I'll be in such a better position being able to just handle a few things at a time, rather than trying to take on the world and then ultimately being disappointed in myself for not being able to take on the world and not being able to take it on perfectly. So that's the first one. That's definitely an in. Do less to do more. The other one, which we'll talk about a lot, is get my morning walk in. That one is backed by science and regulating my circadian rhythm and getting sunlight first thing in the morning. Your circadian rhythm is like your 24-hour internal body clock. It helps with sleeping at night. It helps with taking advantage in a positive way of your cortisol levels first thing in the morning, and it just regulates your system from top down. I have found that a morning walk literally changes my life, but for some reason, especially in the winter, it is hard for me to get out and do it. So, committing to the things that I know work is also kind of like an overarching in for me. Um, and then for outs, I struggle a lot with comparison. I always feel slightly embarrassed when I say that because I feel as though I overcome it. And then I think, part of me, sees something on social media and wants to do more and be more. But it's a learning curve, right? We're human. And so, leaving comparison behind, just knowing, I'm wonderful the way I am as I am is really important this year. And the last thing, which is kind of like an in, but is also an out, which is just curbing my consumer behavior and my
Mm,
consumer spirit. I talk a lot about financial wellness. I think, I'm really lucky to do pretty well, at work between content creation. And I feel as though I don't want to get in that habit of completely expanding my lifestyle every time my income expands. Um, and more so tackling the root cause, which is that consumer behavior that can be endless if you don't kind of, keep it at bay, especially with the world of TikTok and restocks and everyone has so many clothes and things like that, really understanding where I'm getting my joy from, um and making sure it's not always things, something, materialistic can bring you joy, but it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be the main source every time. So
yeah.
that was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, so many things I want to ask about. Maybe let's start with the last one first is I feel the same way that I just feel like I have too much stuff and that I'm
Yeah.
constantly feeling this feeling of lack and like needing a new top for this one event and like maybe that will make me feel better. And I have kind of put myself on like a shopping ban of just like you
Mhm.
don't need another top. Like you just don't
Yeah.
need that top. You can just, you can style the tops that you do have in different ways to make them feel new, but you do not need to go out and buy something new. And it has been
Yeah.
like so it has lightened my load so much, honestly, just like physically having less stuff in my closet and then also mentally the decision fatigue is so much less because I only have like two black t-shirts. I don't have to choose between oh, this one from this style or like this one's a little bit looser, but this one has sleeves and this one doesn't. It's like you only have two options and you know that you like them both. So just whichever one you want to wear. And it's not only helped like my mental health, but also like financial wellness. And I actually started using your budget tracker. Shout out to Cami's like financial wellness budget tracker that I received and then was like, I'm never going to use this because I don't understand money. And then I realized that not understanding money and having no financial literacy is an out for me in 2024. Like,
Yeah.
just being like, I'm just a girl, like, I'm just gonna go get a little sweet treat. No, that's an out. Like, I need to learn how to budget. I need to know where my money's going. So, tracking my finances, being super diligent about that, and then also being really real with myself of being like, every time I spend money on clothes, it gives me a dopamine hit because that's what it's designed to do, but it fades very quickly, and that's not where I find the most joy. So having a small clothing budget, but a big kind of like entertainment, eating out budget, travel budget, that's what's worked for me. And so I love that you said that as well of just being like, you know, curbing consumption because it's something that I've found has really worked in the past 5 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few things that you talked about that I want to get into. The first being your finances, no matter how you try to hide them or skip over them or be like, I'm a girl in a Delulu world and I can just, do whatever I want. Unfortunately, it will end up touching every part of your life. Money isn't everything, but it touches everything. And so when you don't have any, insight into your spending or you don't have any clue, you feel out of control at times when you're with your spending, it trickles down into every part of your life, which is why it's so important for me living this healthy, balanced lifestyle, right? We talk about, those healthy lifestyles, but you get a lot of stress from finances, unfortunately, at some point in
Mm,
time if it's out of control. So yeah, I totally am in alignment with you where it can, help you mentally with your decision fatigue. It can help you physically, obviously financially and things like that. And then when it comes to categories of spending, it's so important to understand where you get your energy, like what category actually is meaningful to you. I'm always trying to get to this place of guiltless spending where I've proactively taken control of the investing and the saving and covering my fixed costs, and that way with what's ever left over I can spend that guilt free, but ideally I'm spending it in categories that are meaningful to me. So if it's travel, maybe that's where I'm spending, and I'm not spending as much on food and items and things like that. I found with my boyfriend, he very much wants to travel. He wants to go eat out. Whereas right now in my life, I think I really want to update my wardrobe. I want to update my apartment.
mm-hmm.
Feel really good at home just because I spend a majority of time there. And so knowing those differences, it's almost like love languages, but finance love languages, is also really important. So just wanted to call that out because you were like, I want to spend in entertainment and travel, and it's true. Everyone has different kind of finance profiles and what we like.
So on this theme of financial wellness, I have a couple questions about just like, can you speak more to it? What does it mean to you? And if someone's like
Mm.
super overwhelmed with all of this money mindset things, like, oh my God, Roth IRAs, like stocks, how do they get started?
Where's the starting point, the entry point? Yeah, so to me, financial wellness is, again, my whole thing, and this probably stems from me growing up and, going through puberty and just all of that great stuff. I've just always wanted to feel comfortable and confident. And so I think having my finances in place gives me a sense of security. It gives me a sense of confidence in myself that I can go out and do things, that I can have the house that I want, that I can live this dream life that I kind of want to build, and that I'm chipping away at it every day by working towards it, or just trying to hone my skills again to kind of tackle that consumer behavior, whatever it is. So it's just all in the spirit of really being well and being empowered in the financial space. Especially a lot of young women don't feel, we're not taught it, and so it feels big and scary and unknown. But if you break it down into little pieces, which hopefully I can kind of talk about, that
Hmm.
those entry points, it's really not that big and scary. And once you have that power, of just knowledge, it really is life changing in so many ways, and it opens up so many doors, and it also closes a lot of doors of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So again, it's just being in the know, just being comfortable and confident dealing with that topic. Um, as for entry points, I think, I would start with trying to determine again those financial love languages for yourself and what actually matters, to kind of reduce any guilt that you might feel associated with spending. If you know that you want to prioritize one category or the other, prioritize those categories and see how that feels for you, and just live it a little bit more in alignment there. I think the second step is just getting clarity. So whether that's my budget tracker or anything, just having an understanding of where your money is going now and really sitting with that, because I think a lot of us are probably overspending in ways that we don't want to acknowledge or that we either don't know. And so figuring out where the money is going in and out is the first step, and then trying to align it where it's your fixed costs are below 50%, so that's your rent, your utilities, your car, anything that you have to pay, your phone bill, all of that good stuff. Your variable costs can be like 30, 40%, right? And then your savings ideally is like 10 to 20%, wherever you are in your life. It can look different in different seasons, and that's also really important to take into account. Those are like the very basics. Having an understanding of yourself, having an understanding of your spending, and trying to get into an alignment of maybe some of those proportions of that spend. From there, I would recommend just opening up a high yield savings account. So, this is a savings account that pays you to have your money there. A lot of people don't know about these. They have like their standard regular savings accounts, whether that's at Chase or Wells Fargo or wherever you're normally banked. And they just don't give you any benefits for it. Whereas a high yield savings account like a Marcus or a Fidelity or something under one of those kind of scopes will pay you like 5% APY or annual percentage yield just on your putting your money there. So we all know about inflation. We hear about it all the time, right? But your money, depreciates over time. And so having someone kind of hedge against that inflation, pay against it, and then give you a little bit of percentage on top is a really great way to just get started without actually having to like do anything, right? So just being a little bit more mindful of where you're placing your money. And then in terms of investments, once you have an idea of where you're spending, what you're spending on, any money that you are sitting on is actually being appreciating versus depreciating due to a high yield savings account. I would recommend either tackling any debt that you have, which is never fun, but it's essential, and then getting into investing. I think a lot of people are like, do I invest? What stocks do I invest in? Do I buy property and things like that? But if you're sitting on credit card debt that has, interest rates of 26%, or even student loans, right, that the interest rates are back up. If you have a bunch of different student loans with a bunch of different interest rates, 3 and 5%, getting those refinanced, aka consolidated, so that you're paying just one smaller interest rate on them is important, and paying down any credit card debt, which you can either tackle, uh, with the card that has the most money on it or the card that has, the highest interest rate. And I say that because I don't know how, your audience age wise, but I think, again, a lot of us overspend. And those that have credit cards, you might find yourself in credit card debt, which is so stressful. I've totally been there before. I actually racked up $8,000 of credit card debt that I paid off last year. And it was the most liberating, difficult, emotional experience. So I definitely always recommend that. So I've said a lot there, but I do feel like all of those pieces come first before investing. And then if you do want to get into the realm of investing, which I think is amazing, investing early, investing often and consistently, and probably sticking to ETFs versus individual stocks. So
Mhm.
ETFs are just kind of a bundle of, think of it as like a variety basket versus just buying 10 of one thing, right? You can get um, a variety pack of like Coke, Sprite, Fanta, things like that. And that will give you a little bit more of a variety of investments versus just buying a bunch of Coke and things like that. So always recommend ETFs, especially for those who are new.
Very comprehensive. And also I'm on like the finance side of TikTok, so I'm like nodding my head. I'm like, "Yep, yep, I've heard all of this before." But always so important to know. And my audience, I think it's about 18 to 24 is the biggest range, and then
Oh, it's a
maybe
perfect
yeah, and then the other one is like 24 to 30 or whatever the next big basket is.
time.
Um,
Yeah.
but I would say like as someone who I was an econ major, which is so not anything to do with finance. And I didn't really understand this world at all. The one tip that I got when I was in college is to open like a Roth IRA, which is just like that,
Yes.
oh gosh, what's it called? Just the retirement savings account where like you have to contribute like a limit of money. I think it's like $6,000 or $12,000 a year is like the most you can put in. And you can use your Roth IRA to like purchase stocks and ETFs and all of those things, but you can't take out the money until 65 or something. You can tell like I'm not super well versed in what that is, but I did open
I
one.
think,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say you open one as soon as possible, as soon as you're eligible to open a Roth IRA. and just start contributing as much as you can into that as well, because that's like I've learned very recently, and it's really made me think about, because I'm like looking into jobs, and I'm now starting to understand like salaries and stuff like that. Like money
Yeah.
makes money. Like you need money to make money, and you can have your money work for you. And I'm coming at it from this idea of like I don't want my labor to equal money and have that be the only thing that like is going to make me money. Like I need to understand investments. I need to understand how to use my money to make more money. And I need to stop using the excuse of being like a delulu little girl who just wants her little treat every day, and really harness behavioral science with that treat thing and like anticipatory rewards and stuff like that. But financial habits and wellness is in. And like this is like very big, scary things, I think, to be hearing about, and probably unexpected if you've clicked on this thing. But it's like, please, if you do one thing like from this podcast, is to look into like a Roth IRA or to look into a high yield savings account and to like really get your finances going. Because once I started to track my finances, to learn how to budget, to like set budgets and stick to them, it's been so much better for my mental health to have that level of discipline, and then also the self-confidence that I can do what I put my mind to.
Totally. I loved so many things that you said, and I want to get into the Roth IRA piece. So, um,
Please
to
do it better than I
add,
did.
no, it was perfect, and I'm actually glad you talked about it because I'm like, let's talk Roth IRAs. Let's talk about the industries you should be investing in. Like, let's really get into it. So, an IRA stands for an individual retirement account, as Katie was saying. A Roth IRA and a traditional IRA are usually the two that you can open up. And you can open them up, I believe, at any time. If you're below the age of 18, I believe you need a parent to open it up. But they absolutely can open it up in your behalf. Um, so a Roth one is a tax advantage account in which you are taxed as your money goes in, versus the traditional account is you contribute your money tax free, and then when you go to take it out in retirement, you're taxed then. The benefit of doing the Roth IRA, especially when you're younger, is that you're in a lower tax bracket. Ideally, you work harder, you get paid more, and your tax bracket, unfortunately or fortunately, grows as you make more money. And so, therefore, having a Roth IRA is probably the best thing you can do, especially when you're young and taking advantage of being in a lower tax bracket. To that point that Katie said, it's actually so advantaged that they have limitations on it. So if you make more than $161,000 as of 2024, you actually cannot take advantage of a Roth IRA. So if you're a millionaire or you're making, $200,000 or whatever it is, you actually can't take advantage of it because it's that advantageous. So that should be note for you. There's also a money limitation, as Katie was saying. So it's actually $7,000 a year that you can contribute. And again, that should be a note to you that this is an account you should probably want to take advantage of. So you can actually contribute $7,000 up to the taxed year of the year prior. So, for example, in 2023, you have $7,000 you can contribute to your account, but you actually have into the tax season of 2024, so around April, to contribute. So you should always try and max out the year before to take full advantage, and then start contributing to the year after. So that way you can really, again, try and max out that account. You don't have to, but it's always, recommended. And you can think of it as Katie was saying, kind of like a savings account where you contribute and get it in the door. You don't have to buy stocks right away with it, but you can actually buy stocks with that money at any time. And if you do max out your Roth IRA, which I was lucky to do 1 year because I was living at home and I wasn't, paying rent or anything, I actually opened up a traditional IRA as well, in which you can obviously contribute freely. There's no limitations on things like that. It's just that your money will be taxed later when you take it out in retirement. And the great things about these, and why I recommend these over Robinhood and things like that, is you can't take your money in and out just willy-nilly. It's kind of like a piggy bank back in the day, where if you really wanted your money out of it, you had to break the piggy bank. They were made out of
Hmm.
glass. So that way you're incentivized to keep your money there and keep it growing. And if you do want to, retrieve that money before the retirement age, which is about 65, then you get a penalty of like 10% tax or something like that. for retrieving that money out early. So you absolutely can take that money out before retirement, but again, the goal is long-term savings and investments. So um, there's also one, phenomenon called compound interest. So when you invest money and you do it early in your life, so say you're, 18 or you're 20 or 24, it is so much more impactful than if you start investing when you're 30 or 40, because your money is in this wonderful world of the stock markets. It's growing, it's getting interest on it every single year for such a much longer period of time. There's all of these different graphs and stuff online where if you invested $1,000 a month, starting at age 25 versus at 35, your retirement account is going to be like 4 times larger, basically. So definitely look into those and definitely, invest what you can. It doesn't have to be $7,000 a year. It doesn't have to be $1,000 a month. It can be $50 a month, and it will significantly change your financial standing just by you participating earlier on. So could not agree more with what you said there. And if you are looking into investing, I wanted to just share a few things on what I look to invest in. Um, there is a saying that you should really invest for the next 5 to 10 years. So, investing in Amazon versus maybe investing in Tesla is a totally different game right now. If you invested in Amazon in the early 2000s, we probably wouldn't be talking. You'd probably be, multi-millionaire running some type of company or something, right? But investing in Amazon now, still a phenomenal company. It probably has a little bit less that it's going to grow in the next 5, 10 years than when it kind of first started off, right? We're looking at Tesla, for example. It's kind of a new company still in its early stages, and probably might be growing a little bit more exponentially in the next couple of years. So really looking for industries that are at the top of their kind of growth cycle. So maybe that's looking into AI, clean energy, TV and streaming, right? We've moved away from watching live TV. Now we watch all streaming TV on Netflix and Hulu, and therefore the ads are being played on those, right? So that's where the money is in that kind of industry there. Maybe it's electric vehicles, right? So kind of looking at these new trends that you're seeing and what are the major players in those trends. So fintech is a really great example. Companies like Square that own Cash App, Coinbase is now, publicly traded, right? Trying to kind of get into those areas and just, doing a little research here and there, and staying up with the trends on what people are buying, right? That's going to kind of play into the stock price and evaluations of the companies that are in those areas. And so that's always a great place to start when looking into what to invest.
And just going off of that, I am so not financially literate when it comes to stock markets and stocks and all that, but I take the Warren Buffett buy and hold really serious.
Yes,
Buy,
it's
hold, just buy it and look at it. Like I look at mine maybe once every 6 months just to see how it's doing, but I really just buy and hold, and I don't look at the nitty-gritties, and I don't think about like the trends and stuff, because if you're anything like me, you don't have the mental capacity or maybe the interest, the time to really get in the nitty-gritty there. So do a little bit of research up front, hold it, and check it once every, 3 months, 6 months, all of that. So 100%
you
agree with everything you said.
no, you're saying gold. It's so true. If you're looking at it every single day, you're going to be on an emotional roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's this really great businessman on YouTube called Alex Hormozy, and he makes like a lot of content on just running a business. A 150 million plus acquisition company is what him and his wife run. And he actually describes patience as just doing anything else but the thing, right? So you can be really patient by just going on your morning walk, by just going to your workout class, by just living your life, right? So be patient with your investments. And to Katie's point, don't look at them every day. Really, truly, don't do it. It's not great for you.
Exactly. Okay, I want to switch out of financial wellness because that was a huge chunk. Honestly,
Yeah.
if you have any resources, I'll put them down in the description as well if people want to like I'll put down your budget tracker, but if any you have any other resources, let me know. But you have so many other just like knowledgeable pieces of gold nuggets around other aspects of wellness, right? I saw like your your hobbies series where you're kind of talking about like the high value hobbies
Yeah.
and all of those things. So I just want to ask if you have, any concrete pieces of advice for someone who is in their early 20s that you would give kind of around maybe habits, wellness that you've learned for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a big question. I guess I'll start with the ones that are good for your brain. So those that garner those chemicals of epinephrine and dopamine and all that great stuff. So we've talked about morning walks and the impacts of morning sunlight. So I guess the procedure there is as soon as you wake up, as close to the time that you wake up as possible, you get dressed, you go outside, and you don't wear sunglasses, right? You try and face east as much as possible, not looking directly in the sun to where it's painful, but getting that direct sunlight to, your irises and your eyes. And what that does is it kicks off your circadian rhythm, your internal body clock, and therefore, 16 or 14 hours later, your body will naturally reduce melatonin in the right time frame of day. So if you've ever been in bed and rotted away until 2 or 3 p.m. I've totally done that more times than I can count, right?
Mhm.
It's harder to go to bed at a decent time, right? Because your clock basically now starts around the 2 to 3 p.m. kind of area. So then when your body naturally releases melatonin 14 to 16 hours later, that could be like 4 a.m., right? And then you're kind of feel like you're stuck in that rut of I'm waking up late, I'm going
Mm.
to bed really late and things like that.
Mhm.
So getting morning sunlight early in the day to anchor it, starting in the morning, and then also getting afternoon sunlight or getting that sunset really anchors the second part of that structure. If you do that, if you take one thing out of this podcast, I promise you, you will feel such a significant difference in your sleep quality and your mental health, the way that your body again kind of garners its cortisol levels and things like that, your stress chemicals. And I feel like your life will change so much for the better. Um, in that kind of avenue of Andrew Huberman recommendations, um, there are definitely a few other things. He talks a lot about dopamine and kind of controlling your dopamine receptors. So, Katie, you talked about the anticipation piece that really plays into having a larger, dopamine hit or one that lasts a little bit longer. He talks a lot about the process that builds up to really having a positive relationship with dopamine and building that chemical there. So, um, I guess really the biggest piece is, and I know we know this, but social media and TikTok and all of those good things are horrible for dopamine receptors. So if you can get some activities, throughout the day of like reading, walking, things that are less uh, stimulating, again, your life will, I think, completely change. Um, but the way that I like to kind of take his practices, I was watching on YouTube, and I'll try to link the video or give it to you, Katie. But the way that I tackle my to-do list is really unique. I try to gamify my to-do list as much as possible. And there's a website called spinthewheel.io where I basically put all of my tasks for the day, and then I'll spin the wheel, and whatever it lands on, like I will do that task. This is happens when I'm in a state of paralysis analysis, and I have so much to work on that I don't know where to start, and I don't want to start. I just want to get back in bed and read my fantasy novels.
Mhm.
So the best way, and this is kind of more in line with the advice of figuring out how to get through hard times for yourself. For me, it's like doing in a state of distress or stress can be really difficult. I think a lot of people feel that way. So for me, putting it on a wheel, right, and spinning it is actually the way that I can actually tackle my work to-do list or get myself out of a slump. And what I like to do between that is put some of those non-stimulating rewards that I would normally do after I finish a task. So reading or playing a game or going on a walk or calling a friend, I will stick those in between. So my brain never knows, am I going to get rewarded or am I going to have some work to do? And I actually find that it's really great for motivating my brain and keeping it like on its toes um, for tasks that I have to do. So obviously, there's always that advice of do the important thing first, eat the frog at the beginning of the day and get that done. Sometimes, as much as I want to do that, and as much as that's definitely the way to be the most productive, I emotionally am not in the state to want to tackle those things. So putting it on a wheel and spinning it is definitely something like I wish I knew younger in my 20s. Um, so those are two things or three things that really kind of stick out to me. And I did talk about hobbies. That video got a lot of views for sure. I basically made this video that was kind of cheeky of like hobbies that make you like richer, smarter, hotter, right? And some people didn't love the wording on that, I will say, which is why the video probably got a lot of views. But essentially, hobbies are really meant to be fun, right? It's for you. And so, if someone says something cheeky like that, it's really, hobbies are supposed to be a release. It's supposed to be a connection of passion, a connection of time, connection with people. But I broke it into three categories that I really do think are important. I think a lot of people in business are always like, do one thing that improves your mind and one that improves your body and your business. And I think dividing up categories into creative hobbies, physical hobbies, and ones that expand your mind are really, really important. So, whether that's coding or painting or working out, finding hobbies genuinely that are not tied to performance for you, but also those that maybe are tied to an end goal, like a certificate or something like that, or finishing a course, I think is a really good balance. I think we should always be finding ways to be I'm always in between, like, should I be eating fruit and just frolicking in the park and, like, being a wonderful feminine princess, or also should I be a boss girl and leading a business and being my own boss and creating wealth and expansion for myself. Those are very much opposite coins, sides of the coins that are my personality, so finding hobbies that connect those 2 and allow me to have access to both realms is really, really important. So those are some things I could say off the top of my head. I know that was a lot, but if you have anything else in mind, I'm happy to talk to them as well.
I mean, I need like 5 minutes just to sit with everything that you've just said, honestly.
I know.
Something that I was thinking about, going back to the hobby piece and also kind of the dopamine piece. I have actually been so good at not being on my phone. And it
Ugh,
is not because I'm saying I'm not going to be on my phone and scroll on social media, but it's because I've been able to replace it with hobbies. And
yes.
that has been
With
so
life.
impactful. Exactly. It's like I can't tell myself not to do something because what am I going to do if I'm not scrolling on my phone? But if I have implemented like structure and routine or things that I like to do that are as like non-brain needed, I guess, like as scrolling and sitting on my phone, like reading, for example, reading fantasy books. It hits the same kind of like dopamine that scrolling my phone would do.
Yes.
Like same position, I'm lying on the couch, except instead of on this like weird box, I'm like reading a book. And that has been so impactful for me. And so I like what you're saying about like, yeah, like hobbies are for fun, but also real like recognizing that like scrolling on your phone is not and should not be a hobby. Like I was
Uh,
watching this TikTok which was like, when did scrolling on our phone become like a personality trait? Like when did like 8 hours of screen time become normalized? And I
yeah.
completely agree for myself. And I think something I just had therapy, so we were always talking about how I'm like really mean to myself and really hard on myself. But I was like, you know what? Like scrolling on my phone is not going to be a hobby for me anymore. And once I made up my mind and changed my identity around that and actually kind of like picked up more hobbies and had more goals. Like a Goodreads book goal is so motivating
Yeah.
and again has nothing really to do, like it's just like a certificate almost, or not even. It's a
Yeah.
digital counter that has been so helpful for my mental health and like my want to do something, or like I'm training for a half marathon, which I was talking a lot about in therapy, and it's like the goal is not to run fast. The goal is just to finish. And like, I don't even know if I'm going to get like a finisher's medal or whatever. I just want to finish. And having a goal in mind of something you can train for and work for makes all of these hobbies more helpful for me. And so I get the whole rhetoric of like, hobbies are meant to be enjoyed, but like, it's really nice to also feel like you're working towards something. So that's the only thing that I would add to that.
Yeah, I think we're goal-oriented people. I think what we're always searching for, if we wanna just break it down to really simple terms as people, is we're always looking for purpose and we're always looking for connection. And so, at the end of the day, if we have those 2 things, your life will feel really, really full. Whether you're making $1,000,000 or $5, whether you have an incredible connection with 10,000 people or just a couple, right? And that's actually all that we're searching for. So having things that also kind of get you into places of learning a little bit more about yourself, expanding yourself, I think really contribute to those two factors at the end of the day. And it also builds really good rapport with yourself. That's something I'd add to this list is a lot of us don't believe ourselves right now if we were going to say, I want to write a book, right? Or I
Mhm.
want to climb Mount Everest. We might not have the confidence in ourselves because we haven't built that rapport. Meaning that when I say I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and meet with Katie, right? But I snooze my alarm, technically that's a little bit of like a lie to yourself, right? Or if you say I'm going to go to the gym and you're like, oh, no, I'm not going to go today, right? There's a difference of being balanced and if you're sick or if you're just, it's just not the day, right? You need a little bit more sleep or whatever. But keeping those smaller promises, whether that is having a Goodreads, target or running a half marathon, it builds confidence with yourself. It deposits credibility into your confidence bank and allows you to go for bigger things and also find out more about yourself. So I think hobbies are a really good lever for that, but also any goal, honestly, any little
Mhm.
thing that we find, and not everything has to be measured or have an output directly tied to it, but it's always good to challenge yourself and also give yourself time to breathe and relax. I think it's an important dual. Everything is like a dual complex in life, I feel like.
Mhm. Well, Cami, I feel like I've learned so much, honestly, just with this hour of conversation. So thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for giving everyone your time and your expertise and your knowledge. Like this was incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I literally am like, "Ugh, I wanna have 18 more conversations with you," but I just think that speaks to you as a host and as a
Thank you.
conversationalist, and yeah, I do think you're such an amazing person. I know Katie literally came from therapy, so the fact that you're holding space and conversation, I was telling her, I was like, "I am so distraught sometimes after therapy. It's, I don't feel like a human." So kudos to you. I know running a podcast is not easy whatsoever.
I was like,
So
if you heard that, it's because my microphone is sitting on my pillow and then it just went boop. No,
I
I
was saying that last
appreciate
sentence, I was like, "Oh, maybe this will buy some time to get that microphone back up." But,
Oh my gosh, no, I
um
appreciate it so much. Yeah, if you're watching the video, if I look like I have just been crying, it's because I have been. So if this is incentive to watch the video, look at my face. But yeah, Cami, it's always such a pleasure just to like be in conversation with you. You have such incredible things to say. And so for the people who want to find you elsewhere on the internet, plug all of your socials, plug the cool